Hey, Brian from SnakeBytes here. I figured you guys would want to see some really cool Australian python collections. So I'm visiting my good friend Troy in Denver's place to show you their awesome animals. You're watching SnakeBytes. Well, being an Australian python lover, there's no better place to go than Australia, of course, to see such amazing animals like this albino Darwin's carpet python. Now, the story behind these guys is the original animal was found up in a caravan park up in the Northern Territory, and its name was Blondie. And then Simon Stone was the first person to actually reproduce these guys. They've started to make them all over the world now, but still the original animals come from Australia. I tell you what, they're amazing. What I have here is a Darwin's carpet python. Of course, these are the same area as the albinos are found up in Northern Territory, and this animal happens to be a het for albino. What first strikes me is the different color than a lot of the other coastal carpet pythons. They have much more of a brownish red tinge. As a matter of fact, they're pretty closely related to the Erie and Jayas that aren't that far from the Northern Territory, and they also stay a little bit smaller than some of the big monsters, only get about 6 foot. They're truly incredible animals. When it comes to Australian pythons, one of my favorite animals that I've always wanted to own were diamond pythons. And it's pretty amazing that with all the carpets that I've worked with, that I've never actually owned diamond pythons. As you can see, they're truly amazing with all their really heavy freckling pattern. Now, these guys are from the Sydney area in New South Wales, and there's really 2 phases of them, which is the black and yellow and the black and white. But because the black and yellow are so stunning, the majority of people here are starting to breed for the high yellow animals. And what's happening is the black and white ones are becoming harder and harder to find. This is a great example of an animal that has a lot of white in it. I tell you what, diamond pythons have to be in my future.
How many hours a week does Brian normally work? Is it A, 65 hours, B, 105 hours, or C, 85 hours? Answer with a comment and keep watching to see if you're right.
What I have here, or should I say she has me, is an olive python. This happens to be a het albino, and she just laid eggs, so as you can see, her food response is a little bit intense, and she just grabbed me and she's got me coiled, and trust me, she's constricting really hard. My hand is kind of going numb, and this bite doesn't feel very well at all, but they're really cool animals. They can get up to 12 to 15 foot in some cases, with the WA animals being the larger of the two, but there's virtually none of them in captivity, whereas the top end animals typically max out at about 12 foot. They'll produce anywhere from 12 to 18 eggs, with really big clutches being in the upper 20s, believe it or not. And now that the albinos are on the scene, people are really working them much harder because they're known to be kind of difficult breeders. In the past, everyone thought you needed to have them at least 4.5 to 5 years old. Now they're breeding them at 2.5 years. And with this feed response, you can see that they feed really well, and you can almost breed them every single year. Might be time to get this little bugger off my hand. Kind of hurts a lot. Troy and Denver have some amazing black-headed pythons, but this axanthic animal caught my eye right off the bat. It's a recessive mutation that basically yanks the xanthophore or yellow pigment out, causing it to be more or less a black and white snake. And the black head on an axanthic blackhead is even more incredible than a normal. The jag carpet market is really exploding here in Australia. When they first came on the scene, they were called RPMs, which stood for Reduced Pattern Modified Animals. Now they're just being called jags, and this is an amazing specimen of it. It's 50% jungle, 25% Murray Darling, and 25% coastal jag. They're calling them red Hypo Jags. And I tell you what, it's incredible. Just look at the color on that animal. And it's got a bit of an attitude too. I get blown away by snakes all the time, but I gotta tell you, this might be my favorite animal that I've seen since I've been in Australia. This is a Hypo Brittle Jag, and I love bredli and I love Hypo bredli, but you put it into the jag gene and holy crap, look at the color and pattern on this animal. It absolutely blows me away. I want to take a minute and just run through a handful of jag morphs for you guys. Denver's been working on some amazing black-headed pythons, and as a matter of fact, it's probably the most impressive black-headed python collection in the entire world. Now this animal here, that seems to be pretty aggressive as a matter of fact. You can see it's got my knickers. It's not too far away from my family jewels, but fortunately it's a pretty normal looking black-headed python, but it comes from a line that's incredible. You can see there's just some little circles on it instead of all the banding, and through some polygenic morph breeding, he's been able to produce some amazing animals. Let me show you what he's come up with. Through selective breeding, you were able to see some of the normal banding on a black-headed python turn into more circular pattern, hence the name Ocelotted black-headed python. Now it's still a normal looking snake with an unusual pattern. Enter the next mutation, which in this case is going to be a color mutation. Now blackheads get their name from their typical black sock on their head. There was a little bit of gold patterning that Denver noticed, and he started to line breed that animal, and he bred it into ocelots to get the gold ocelots. And as you can see with this animal, the typical blackhead is starting to turn brown. Again, it's a polymorphic gene, so there's one step beyond this through line breeding. And that next level is this amazing golden ocelot black-headed python. And as you can see, the black cap on it is almost completely missing. You still see some tans and some black bleeding through, but it's pretty much just a brown head, so it's completely hypomelanistic, as well as the entire back of the body hardly has any black at all in it. It's truly amazing. But if you think that's all Denver has, let me show you a couple other things that he's got up his hat. The next project is this reduced pattern animal. Now this isn't related whatsoever to the ocelot gene, although it has similar reduction in pattern in the sense that it doesn't have the normal banding. And you can certainly see the reduced pattern all the way through the top of the neck and through the side. Now this one does have the golden gene in it as well. You can see the brown coming through on the black head and so on like that, but it's another really polygenic animal. You have to remember that this is years and years of breeding to get specific traits like this. Now going in a completely different direction from the gold or ocelot would be what's being called the striped animal. And as you can see, there's certainly a dorsal stripe all the way down this animal, all the way through here, and it really breaks up the banding. It's going to be really interesting to see when there's some line breeding of this animal, what really comes out. I've showed you a whole bunch of really incredible black-headed pythons, but I've really saved the best for last. This was an animal that when I first saw it, I completely freaked out. I didn't even know what to say about this animal. Take a look at this beautiful girl. Now let me tell you the backstory on her. She's part of the gold and ocelot gene. When she hatched out, she was a little bit lighter, but nothing really incredible until she hit about 2 years old, and she slowly shed her pigment out. Now I have no idea what the genetics are going to be in the future of this animal, but I tell you what, if he can reproduce this animal, it's going to be a gold mine, and it's certainly unbelievable to be holding this animal right now. I hope you guys enjoyed some of this adventure into some Aussie python collections here in Australia. It's truly been an amazing experience for me to share it with you guys.
For this week's question of the week, coming to you from Oz, if you could keep any sort of Aussie python, what would it be? Go ahead and comment down below.
So there it is. I hope you guys enjoyed the show as much as I enjoyed showing you these amazing collections. If you guys ever want to follow any of my animal adventures, make sure to hit me up over on Facebook and Twitter at SnakeBytesTV. From my new friend, the Aussie green tree python, we'll see you guys next week on Snake Bites.
So how many hours a week does Brian normally work? Well, if you guessed B, 105 hours, you're absolutely right. That's a lot of time.
These are some amazing blackheads that I came across. They're calling them ocelotted, and you can see they actually have kind of a circle pattern down them instead of the normal banding. They're really light animals too. It's almost like you're pulling some of the melanin out or the black pigment. As a matter of fact, even their head patterns, instead of being super black like a normal blackhead, are more of a tannish brown color.